Hello, long time no see. This is Brian Scott. This is hello again. This is Brian Scott. This is Mystic Eye Games. I want to go back to 1973. I was about 7 years old. Very highly, very high reading skill, and so I would read things that adults were reading. But I also read comic books, and my um, I was really uh, enthralled in comics. And I had already been reading comic books for, I don't know. I know I was reading them, well, not the 60s, but I was probably reading them when I was by 5 years old. And anyway, I got this book in, might not have been 73, it might have been 74, 75, but it was very close to when it actually came out. Uh, Origin of Marvel Comics by Stan Lee. It this is and it literally says, let me read to you, what's inside of it. Uh, the, um it's by Simon Schusters, and I bought it in Barnes& and Noble. It says this book is a facility, edition of Origin of Marvel Comics, is presented as it was originally published in 1974. So this is exactly the book, though it's not the shape of the book. I guess reprints are different. I know what I can tell you the feel of this book. It was much bulkier and not as big, right? So, but even then, um, now one may argue, Brian, you can buy these electronically. You don't need to have this book. You don't need to, have this book. But and I would argue, when people write stuff for books like this, which Stanley does, they basically compile a bunch of comics, mostly from the '60s, because again, this was around '64. I mean '74. So, um, and though I've been reading comics for a long time, even by this time, I had never read the Origin comics because those came out there in the real early '60s when I was still just a child or wasn't even born yet. So, um, if for no other reason you buy it because it has commentary by Stan Lee in between each of the origins of these, of course, all the people on the cover. Later on, they would do Sons of Origins, and they would done something. I want to say Origin of Marvel Superheroine or Superwoman, something like that. Another very good book, which I wish they would make a reprint. I think this is the only one they've done so far, and I think this was in um, commemoration of Simon Schuster's long run. I don't know. I could be wrong. Tell me in the comments below. I cannot begin to tell you how important this book was for me as a child, back in the '70s. As I've said, I read all these comic books, and I'm trying to remember. This is probably when I started reading or buying comic books, right? No, that's not true. I was reading comic books probably when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So anyway, each one of these has the origin story. Then it has the story, one of the stories, uh, maybe a decade later. So this is where they began. This is where they are now, or so a lot of these are, the second one's like from the either the late '60s or early '70s, where the other one's from the early '60s when they first came out. Um, I don't really have much more to say. It's just, oh, and I'll show you. It's a faithful reproduction, so very nicely. I want to say it was $22 in this day and age. That's a steal, literally. Um, Again, get it while they last, because I have a feeling this is not something that's going to stay in print. And I might have even just bought the last one, literally. Unfortunately oh, another little thing about this, I came so close to buying the others too. While they didn't have the, continuations, they had, these books had, like, maybe the first 10 issues of each one of these, so there's a Spider-Man, Avengers, and X-Men. This is Barnes& and Noble, and but they were printed by Penguin, and they had the penguin, the black, stripe and the type. It was very much a penguin book. Um, so I thought that was interesting. I have a feeling because Disney being Disney, Disney doesn't see when they bought Marvel, Disney doesn't do comics. Even when they had their own characters like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and all that, they didn't make the comics. They outsourced it. Well, guess what? That's what they're doing now. And of course, now they're not even doing I mean, you can still buy comic books, but now when it comes to something like this, they're outsourcing it. They're not going to print stuff. So so you're going to see things like Simon Schuster's and Penguin doing these. So again, talking about finding something out in the wild. I've been wanting this. This on eBay goes for hundreds of dollars if you're lucky. The original. So now I have this. This is like a precious childhood memory, and I'm able to enjoy it once again. Until later.